All right, let's just jump right in with a question that honestly is going to sound a little weird at first. What in the world does a block of firm tofu have to do with all of your most precious memories? Seriously, think about your first kiss, your childhood home, the exact faces of your closest friends. Well, it turns out a block of firm tofu is the exact consistency of the human brain. The very thing sitting inside your head right now, navigating your entire existence, is essentially this fragile, wet, tofu-like organ.
And to make this literally as real as it gets, Dr. Wendy Suzuki, who is this brilliant leading neuroscientist, actually carries around a real preserved human brain in a hat box. Yeah, a hat box. She affectionately calls her Betty. And when you hear about Betty, you realize something incredibly profound. Every emotion, every worry, every single relationship, all the trauma, all the education, even the favorite movies and favorite colors of this person's entire existence was captured right there in that tiny 3-pound ball. It creates this massive curiosity gap, right? How on earth does this physical object dictate everything that we are?
So welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are going on a really fascinating journey to learn exactly how to build a healthy, big, fat, fluffy brain. And we're going to do it using the absolute best tools from modern neuroscience. Now, you might be wondering, why fluffy? Well, because a big, fat, fluffy brain is a healthy, optimized brain. It's your biological pathway to a much happier life, sharper focus, and deeply, deeply retained memories. Before we get too deep, I want to anchor our whole journey today on this one powerful quote from our source material. Through her firsthand research, Dr. Suzuki discovered that, quote, every drop of sweat counted. The more you exercise, the more change in your brain. This proves something so incredibly empowering for all of us. Your daily actions matter, literally right now. You are absolutely not stuck with the brain you woke up with today. Here is our roadmap for the explainer today. First up, we're gonna meet your plastic brain. Second, we'll learn how to properly exercise it. Third, making those memories stick. Fourth, building a healthy lifestyle. And finally, we're gonna completely reframe everyday anxiety. Let's get into it.
Section 1. Meet your plastic brain.
You know, for the longest time, the scientific community bought into this massive myth. They honestly believed that the adult brain just couldn't change. The idea was that once you reached adulthood, your brain was basically set in stone. But we discovered that the adult brain actually can change, and it was thanks to a groundbreaking experiment in the late 1960s by a researcher named Marion Diamond. She ran this simple but entirely profound experiment with adult rats. In one setup, she had the shoebox environment. The rats had free food and water, sure, but they were completely isolated with zero toys. But in the other setup, it was basically Disney World. We're talking highly social, packed with toys, running wheels, just constant stimulation. And the result? The rats raised in Disney World actually physically grew a thicker outer covering of their brain, which is called the cortex. Their brains literally created more synaptic connections just from hanging out in a fun, enriched environment.
So, the big takeaway here is that our brains are incredibly responsive to our environment, especially two key areas. One is the prefrontal cortex, which handles all your focus and decision-making. But the other is the hippocampus. Fun fact, hippocampus literally translates to seahorse just because of its shape. This quirky little seahorse structure, which sits deep inside your temporal lobe, is absolutely critical for your ability to form and retain new long-term memories for facts and events. Which brings us to a super fascinating question. If a rat hanging out in a fun cage can grow a thicker cortex, can intense studying, like say pulling all-nighters cramming for a massive test, actually alter the physical anatomy of a human brain? Just think about that for a second. Can forcing yourself to learn literally reshape the tofu inside your head?
Well, the answer is a massive yes, and we know this because of London taxi drivers. To become a certified cabbie in London, you have to pass this notoriously brutal test called the knowledge. We're talking 4 years of intense studying just to memorize every single street and landmark in the entire city. Researchers actually scan the brains of trainees before and after this process. The ones who successfully passed the test literally grew the posterior part of the hippocampus, which is the exact area involved in spatial memory. They studied so hard, their memory centers physically ballooned in size. That is just wild to me.
Moving right along to Section 2, exercise your brain.
Okay, so we know studying changes the brain. But what is the absolute most powerful tool for cognitive longevity? Like, what's the #1 thing you can do today to protect your brain from aging? It's actually physical movement. Look at this massive number, 30%. A study looked at adults aged 65 and older and measured their physical activity in an incredibly simple way.
Just counting how many walks they took per week, the folks who took just 3 walks a week or more saw a 30% reduction in their risk of developing dementia over the next 5 years. Just from taking a walk. You absolutely do not need to be a marathon runner to physically protect your brain from cognitive decline. So why does just walking work so beautifully? Well, every single time you move your body aerobically, you are giving your brain what Dr. Suzuki delightfully calls an exercise bubble bath. You instantly release these amazing neurochemicals that make you feel good: serotonin, dopamine, noradrenaline, and endorphins. But crucially, you also release growth factors. These growth factors shoot directly into your hippocampus and literally help brand new brain cells grow. You are actively building a bigger, fluffier hippocampus that acts like a biological fortress against diseases like Alzheimer's.
Let's jump into Section 3, Making Memories Stick.
Now that we've theoretically grown some shiny new brain cells, let's learn the biological secrets of how to actually make your mind a steel trap. How do we ensure the things we want to learn actually stay stuck in that seahorse-shaped hippocampus? Well, there are 4 highly actionable steps. Number 1 is repetition, which, fairly obvious. Number 2 is association. The hippocampus absolutely loves connecting things. It's like using a memory palace, where you associate a totally new fact with, say, the layout of your childhood bedroom. Number 3 is novelty. Our brains evolved to pay intense attention to new things just to keep us safe from danger, so surprises naturally stick in our minds. But the 4th step? That's the secret weapon. Emotional resonance. Notice how we remember our happiest and saddest moments flawlessly? Why is that? Because a tiny, almond-shaped structure right next to the hippocampus called the amygdala processes emotions. And when you feel something deeply, it literally gives your hippocampus a biological jolt of energy to solidify that memory forever.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 4, Building a Healthy Lifestyle.
Because look, this entire process ties directly into your everyday life. The completely mundane choices you make, from the second you wake up to the minute you go to bed, act as either premium cognitive fuel or absolute poison for your brain. Think about the contrast in our daily habits. On one hand, you have the brain destroyers. Being entirely sedentary deprives you of those crucial growth factors. Chronic loneliness actually causes long-term stress that physically damages your brain. Spending 7 hours doom-scrolling on social media completely robs you of real connection. And sleep deprivation, this one is crazy. When you sleep, your brain literally washes itself with cerebral spinal fluid, clearing out all the toxic garbage and metabolites that built up during the day. If you don't sleep, you are basically walking around with a garbage-filled brain. Gross, right? Now, compare that to our brain builders, fueling up with a super colorful Mediterranean diet, daily walking, having real face-to-face social connections, and getting a solid 8 hours of deep sleep to wash that brain squeaky clean.
And finally, Section 5, Reframing Everyday Anxiety.
We live in an incredibly overstimulating world, and let's be honest, it is taking a massive toll on our nervous systems. So the key here is understanding the actual physical mechanics of stress. When you get, say, a nasty text message from your boss, your body instantly triggers a fight or flight response. Your heart rate spikes, and blood literally shunts away from your digestive system and goes straight into your muscles so you can physically fight a tiger. The problem? Your brain isn't quite smart enough to know that a bad text message won't eat you alive. So how do you override this biological false alarm? Step 3 is literally a superpower. Take 3 slow, deep breaths. It's the oldest form of meditation on Earth, and it is the one thing you have conscious control over that instantly activates your parasympathetic nervous system. That's your rest and digest mode. It calms your heart and grounds you right back in reality.
But here's the thing. We really shouldn't just be trying to eliminate every single bad feeling. Dr. Suzuki shared this incredibly profound realization after the sudden, unfathomable loss of both her father and her brother. While she was literally working out just to cope with the heavy grief, an instructor said to her, "With great pain comes great wisdom." And she realized in that moment that the unfathomable pain of her grief was actually a direct biological reflection of the deep, immense love and connection she had for her family. If she didn't love them so deeply, the grief just wouldn't be so massive. Everyday anxiety actually works the exact same way. It's a warning system pointing directly to the things you hold most dear in your life.
Which brings us to one final, pretty provocative thought to leave you with today. If a magical pill existed that could just instantly erase all of your grief, all of your stress, and all of your everyday anxiety, would you really want to take it? Our journey today shows us that if you numb the pain, you kind of numb the love too. These prickly, difficult, heavy emotions are the exact things that give our joyous moments their soaring value. They are absolute proof that your beautiful tofu-like brain is working exactly as it should, deeply connected to the world and the people around you. So go out there, take a walk, get some sleep, and embrace that magnificent, fluffy brain in your head. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.